I need the expert over there to tell me if the camera is fine. Catching me fully. It's more on my head than it is on my face. I know why. Because the camera is a little lower. Maybe first of all, let's try this. Now it's good. Yeah. And does it say it turned on already? Go live. It's already live, right? Okay, we're good. Okay, everyone, welcome. Mashiach Weekly here at Levi Yitzchak. Look at this. We welcome Rabbi Brody. All the 3,000 online listeners. Rabbi Brody came this week for the first time, so that's a big excitement. And all the other good Yidden. I'm going to pass this around. We have some. This might be mine. Okay, we're doing well. Abaraichik came back already for the fifth share, I think. So that's good. Okay. All right, everyone. So today is Asav. Today is an exciting share. I'm going to address something which I think at the end of the class we won't have clarity because I don't have clarity, and maybe you'll have clarity. I think it's a pretty ambiguous thing that was stated, but I think just the idea of what was said and the exploration of it and trying to grapple with the idea that was said. The reason I'm teaching that this week is because this week is Parshas Vayetze, and Parshas Vayetze is when the Rebbe introduced something new in terms of Mashiach rolling out to the world. No, we finished that. Last week we finished Mashiach Revelation. Now we finished the concept of what can it mean that Mashiach is revealed. That we call that Mashiach Revelation. We gave 3 classes on that, and the idea was that even if the whole world hasn't seen it or recognized it, there is a revelation to Mashiach himself. And once that happens, Mashiach is already kind of his galos revealed. At least it's basically a no return stage. Oh, that was the parshias that the Rebbe spoke about. That was Vayera, Chayesara, and Toldos. And now that we finished Parshas Toldos and we're on to Parshas Vayetze, so let me just give a little brief overview. From when the Rebbe spoke to Chav Ches Nisan, and the Rebbe shook Lubavitch, and the Rebbe shook the world by saying that, we're going to partner now, we're going to do this together because we can't rely on him to roll Mashiach out. The Rebbe didn't say, hi guys, goodbye, I'm out of here. The Rebbe said basically, now it's becoming the achrayas of every single one of us to have Mashiach. And the sichos that happened from after that Shabbos for a little less than a year, almost a year, from the end of Nisan till the end of Chav Zayin Adar. So it's 1 year minus, it was a leap year, so it's almost a year. It's 11 months. That whole period, the sichos that were given were like off the charts, Mashiach. The entire sichos were Mashiach. That it was like a complete different level. And the Rebbe revealed incredible things that year. In a very general way, we can say that there were 4 tkufas, 4 periods in that time, where in each tkufa the Rebbe spoke about for like 2-3 months. Each one was introducing a new concept. The first concept was a continuation of the Chav Ches Nisan Sicha, where the Rebbe was talking about Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach, that it has to be everybody's personal obligation. Now, we have to take Mashiach so seriously that the idea of bringing Mashiach is no more the job of a Rebbe. It's the job of every single one of us as a personal. It's our avodah to bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe is teaching us how can we get to that state that we should Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach. And the Rebbe told us then the Derech HaYeshara, the most significant path to do that is to become so filled with knowledge about Mashiach by learning it, and that learning of it is going to inspire you to do everything you can to bring Mashiach and to do whatever the avodah is. That went on for a couple of months, where the Rebbe was pushing the idea of Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach. Parshas Balak time, around after Shavuos, exactly which week it started is I don't know, I don't remember right now. But sometime in Parshas Balak, or maybe a week before, or so on and so forth, maybe Bahaloitz already, the Rebbe introduced a new concept, and he spoke about it throughout the summer. And it was on and off, not mentioned every week, but many weeks this was mentioned. The Rebbe started speaking about Lichyos in Mashiach, not Lahavi L'Moisa Mashiach, not that there is an avodah to bring Mashiach, but that we're currently already in Yemoisa Mashiach. The Rebbe started using terminology that Mashiach is like, the way I understand it, because you see from other sikhs, the Rebbe is still crying ad Masai. So obviously we're talking about some kind of a twilight zone. It's some kind of a Bein HaShemoshes. Golus is ending, Mashiach is starting. So there's some kind of an overlap between the last bits of darkness and the lights of Mashiach. And the Rebbe is for the first time speaking in different kind of words, where he says that Mashiach is ready. We're already in the Saf HaGeula, we're already in the threshold of the redemption, and we can currently start living in Mashiach's times. And the Rebbe pointed each week to a different Indian of what, like Avas Yisrael and the way that it is in the days of Mashiach. The Rebbe, for example, said that you don't have Avas Yisrael these days in order to be mevatel the Golas, because that was done already. We finished already fixing the Golas. The tshuva was done already. That's not your Avas Yisrael to stop the Golas. It's because when Mashiach will come, we'll have incredible Avas Yisrael. So let's start living that way. And that was the theme. The theme was in many, many things to start living with the consciousness of Mashiach. Lichdis Mashiach. And we'll talk about the Berurim over. Yeah, it relates to the Berurim over. The idea that Berurim over in a strong way also started this week. Parshas Vayetze. We're going to get to that. Then in the winter, Cheshvan time, again that kind of carried over from Balak time, Tammuz of Elul, and then in Tishrei, the end of Tishrei, Bikr Cheshvan, Parshas Noach, the Rebbe starts talking Naya L'Shainis. The Rebbe says basically the Lashon, he starts to bring out the idea that the Avodah now everything is done already. The only Avodah is now dependent on Mashiach Tzidkeinu. It's something that's dependent on Mashiach. In other words, Ein Adavar Toli, that's the Rebbe's Lashon in Parshas Noach. Ein Adavar Toli, the matter is no more in now, because everything we've done is done already. It's only Toli b'Mashiach Atzmai. So we need to do something to kind of activate Mashiach's galas, kind of. And then the Rebbe Parshas Vayera says he's Nizgal already. And what does the Rebbe say is our avodah for that, to match whatever needs to happen, is our avodah needs to be lekabel pnei Mashiach tzidkeinu. So we have to go be makabel. Now it's interesting. What I'm interesting is that in our last 3 classes, I didn't discuss that. We didn't discuss what the avodah of lekabel pnei Mashiach tzidkeinu. Hopefully we don't have to discuss it, because by the time we get to that class, Mashiach will be here already, and whether we like it or prepare it or not, the Kabbalah Pnei Mashiach Tzidkeinu is not going to be something that we're going to have instructions for. Either we missed the avodah of it, or we did it, or whatever. But we didn't. What I'm saying is there was a lot to be mashlim to complete on the previous 3 classes that I gave. I was only explaining what, hopefully, a little bit, perhaps, what the Rebbe meant when the Rebbe was saying that Mashiach is already his galas. So the Eibishter had already chosen him, he revealed him to him already, and so on and so forth. That we discussed in the past few sure, but that was the noisa, that was the discussion until Parshas Vayetze. Parshas Vayetze, Vayishlach, Vayeshev, here the Rebbe starts speaking new words. And the Rebbe's words are that we're sitting already at the table with Mashiach Tzidkeinu. We have already the Shara Bora and the Leviasan. And we're sitting already with the Eibishter. In other words, the Rebbe is speaking, not only that Mashiach is here, the Rebbe is like speaking like the Geula is here already. And the only thing that's necessary now is Mir Daf and Efen in the Yogan.
So the Rebbe said that Eibishter was already notifying what we were talking about last week, Mashiach.
Yeah, but there's 2 things. That's Mashiach himself.
Yeah.
But then there is an inyan of Geula. And there is the idea that the redemption has to happen. So it's not like the Rebbe, like Chas v'Sholem, is like saying it in a sense, like, you know, like, oh, the whole Geula is here already. The Rebbe is basically seeming to be saying that certain. Yeah. No.
There's a Mashiach. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in a second. But even in that itself, what I'm saying is the chiddush of this week is that not only is Mashiach as a person, because last week we differentiated between Bias Mashiach and Geula. That was the idea that we explained from the Sfas Emes. Bias Mashiach L'chud and Golus L'chud. And we even brought up Rabbeinu Bachai. We had a whole long discussion how between the 2 it can be a very miserable time, a very dark time. And actually the Golus can get worse during the time after Mashiach comes and the Geula. What is unique in the terminology that the Rebbe starts using in Parshas Vayetze is almost that there are certain elements of Geula that happened already. It's just that we're not tapping into it. We're kind of in la. We're not seeing it.
So that's the way past the Mashiach.
That's past Mashiach. That's already some elements of Geula. Now, what I'm saying is just that I'm not daring to say that the Rebbe is, because you see the famous sikh of the Lopain, which happened mamish 2-3 weeks before Chav Zayin Ada, where the Rebbe is crying ad Masai, like if Chas v'Shalom things will be delayed longer. And people sometimes point to that sikh and say, well, the Rebbe himself said if Chas v'Shalom it's going to be delayed. Well, If the Rebbe would not have said that, then we would have a problem. But the Rebbe did say, and that's taka what we're experiencing right now. It was delayed 30 years in terms of we're still patchkening around over here. So obviously, and the Rebbe wasn't shayl that. With everything the Rebbe said, the Rebbe was still telling us during that time that if chas v'shalom things will be delayed and it can be and the children will be raised, these children whose mothers was killed so brutally, right? So you had that idea. What I'm just saying is what's unique in this sikha, which I'm going to share with you now, is that the Rebbe says words that we've never heard before, like shocking words. We're already sitting by the table with Moshiach Tzedkeinu. We're here already with we even have the Shera Bar and the Levi Yasin. The only thing that's necessary for us is to open our eyes and to recognize that all that exists already. In other words, to realize that the Geula, we're already in the Geula. The Rebbe uses terms like we're already living in Yemoisa Mashiach, like very strong terms that till then. But I know that, but it's a strong term. We're going to see it inside that we're ready in your Moshiach Mashiach and things like that. These are very strong terms, and obviously these things were but as the Rebbe revealed them, he started speaking about them more and more and more. That you saw it wasn't just some kind of a one-time statement, and that was like afterwards he let go of it. He consistently continued over a few weeks, and I want to share a little story I saw today, yesterday, which is very, very special, just to show how accurate. Obviously, we don't need that as Chassidim that we should know that our Rebbe is accurate, but sometimes because we have a left side and because we have a kligen care, as we call it, and we sometimes think that we can estimate what a Rebbe is. So the Rebbe, Tavshin Lamed Daled, I saw this. This a Bacher wrote it in the Yoman. He was writing down his diary of what happened. Probably it's written into the Sichos. In Tavshin Lamed Daled Matzah Simchas Torah. So Matzah Simchas Torah, this is in 1974 or 1973 still. The Rebbe concluded Friday, Simchas Torah, Simchas Torah was on a Friday, and so it went. Simchas Torah went right into Shabbos. So Matzah Simchas Torah Friday night, the Rebbe, I don't know if he walked out from davening. I'm not exactly sure which thing. The Rebbe started singing V'samachta. But he sang V'samachta to the song of Ufaratzta. The Rebbe was always V'samachta b'ch. That's the name. And the Rebbe started V'samachta b'chagecha v'hayis. And it was like very strange because the Rebbe started V'samachta to Ufaratzta. Like whoever sang Ufaratzta to V'samachta. So obviously, if you're standing there watching, say, like the guy writes it, he says, it's either a plitas apeh or plitas niggin. It's like some kind of, the next day, or either Shabbos Bereshis or the following week. I have to look it up again. I'm sorry, I didn't. When I saw the story, the Rebbe explained by the Fabrengen. The Rebbe says, because now we're dealing with Matzah Shabbos, Matzah Simchas Torah, and which Matzah Simchas Torah is the avodah of the Samachta, because it still belongs to Simchas Torah. But since it's also Friday night, it's also already Shabbos Bereshis, which Shabbos Bereshis is the beginning of a Yaakov Holoch L'Darkei to start doing the avodah in the world. Which the avodah in the world is the avodah of Ufaratzta. So the Rebbe said, the Bedemot Megazingen the Nigen. That's the reason we sang the Nigen of the Samachta to Ufaratzta. So we kind of did a combo, combining the Simcha with the Ufaratzta and Simchas Torah and Shabbos Bereshis to unify together. So I'm just saying is that by Rebbe, everything is betachos adiyok. There's no like stam. These sichos, as mentioned already in the previous, that when the Rebbe said them, there were so many in Yanim, it was hard to even figure out what the Rebbe was saying. But the Magiyim of the Sichos, and as Rasim Jacobson had spoken about how the Magiyim, those who would put it down and write it down, they had to sit hours and hours and hours because the Rebbe keeps on referring to Kimedubel El, like we spoke many times, Kimedubel Kabapam. So they really had to take chunks of ideas that were discussed earlier and kind of fill in the blanks. And the Rebbe would edit it very seriously. Certain things he would cross out, totally not the kavanah, and so on and so forth, until he got what he wanted and conveyed. And these sichos, and again, anybody that learns these sichos sees in them that there is such incredible goiness. It's just, and as I mentioned, I keep on mentioning, it's like a sum totality of all of Chassidus. It's a chazar of all of Chassidus. This parsha is Vayetze sich, which we're going to read now, and I'm not just reading Vayetze. I'm going to quote. I'm just going to try to show you a few places where the Rebbe discusses mamish this Inyan about how we're sitting already and we have to just open our eyes. Okay, so. But I want to give a little introduction to the toichen of the sikh before we learn, before we learn, because I don't like cut and paste. So I want to do at least just an akuda. It's a very, very geshmak sikh. The Vayesh, every sikh is a geshmak, but the Vayesh has such a, I don't know, maybe I'm saying it's such a geshmak because I just learned it, and whenever I learn the sikh, that sikh is the geshmak the sikh. It's phenomenal, and it's a continuation of Parshas Toldos. It's what is the Rebbe talking about? He's talking about Yud. It was Yud. It's Yud Kislev. It was Shabbos Tes Kislev. Parshas Vayesh is Tes Kislev, the Mittler Rebbe's birthday, and the Mittler Rebbe's Mistalk. So the Rebbe is talking about the idea that you have one of our Rabbeim whose birthday and his Estalkus and Yortzeit comes out on the same day. Both of them on the same day. So the Rebbe says, that's what it says about biggest tzaddikim. The biggest tzaddikim, that Hashem fills their lives, that their lives are perfect. So the Rebbe asks a question, by a tzaddik, his life is spiritual. If a tzaddik's life is spiritual, what's so special? So what happens to the physical life? He's not physical. His entire existence is not physical. So what difference does it make that in the physical type that he's in his body, there is a perfection of a perfect amount of years, that he lives his life to the day, like Moshe Rabbeinu, who lives like. And the Rebbe explains that since it's very important that the physical life of the tzaddik should be perfect, that the tzaddik should be perfect, not just spiritually, but physically as well. The reason why it's so important that the tzaddik should be perfect physically as well is because the whole idea of the shlichus of all neshamas into this world is to do the avodah in the physical world and to connect physicality to spirituality. So therefore, the shleimus of avodah is when the perfection of the spiritual doesn't remain aloof or above or outside, but actually permeates and expresses itself also in the physical. So to the point where the Rebbe uses a lashon that by the tzaddik, what we have over here is that there's almost like one seamless continuity of his neshama, that kind of like, it's almost like looking at his soul and his soul's perfection, and the neshama kind of like evolves into the body, where the body is like not in any way like another thing. It's like just one continuation of neshama. So if his neshama is perfect with perfect avodah, so physicality, his physical body also is perfect. And what's the perfection of his physical body? Since physicality is determined primarily with time and space, so in time, there's such a perfection in time that his life comes out to be so perfect physically, because the physical is not just a keli that Rebbe explains. It's not just a keli. It's not just a vessel for the spiritual. The physical is almost like even and on par with the spiritual. It's like one continuum of existence. And the Rebbe says, to be able to match physicality and the spiritual in such a perfect harmony, it's not that the physical is nullified to the spiritual, but the physical and the spiritual are total partners, where they're totally one. And there isn't even any difference between them, can only be when the madrega of Atzmos himself, only God himself is revealed, that transcends spiritual and physical and ultimately equalizes. And just like Hashem is the essence of the spiritual, he's the essence of the physical too. And only from that place can there be such a perfect oneness of the physical and the spiritual. That's the Rebbe's idea. And the Rebbe says that's why it expresses itself dafka by the Mittler Rebbe. Really, the Rebbe says it's by all tzaddikim, because all tzaddikim reach shleimus avodah, and it should be. But it doesn't necessarily reveal itself by all tzaddikim, even though it's there by all tzaddikim. And the Rebbe has a whole interesting cheshbon. What do you mean? It's either yeah or no. Did they die on the day they were born, and pass away on the day they were born? They're stalkers or not? So the Rebbe says no. All the tzaddikim, they completed their thing on the day they were born. It's only that it can be one of two things. It can be in one of two ways. It can be either that they the last year of their life, in let's say their birthday was let's say Yud Beis Tammuz, like by the Friedrich Rebbe, but his Stalkus is on Yud Shvat, right? So it's a half a year later. So the Rebbe says he managed to finish an entire year's work in a half a year. So really, he is perfectly completed, but he did it fast. Even this half a year, he got the shleimus of a whole year done in a shorter period of time. So it's as if his birthday would be that year on Yud Shvat, and it's done. That's one way of looking at it. Or the Rebbe says another way, is he reached his perfection on Yud Beis Tammuz, but then they give him some extra days as bonus extra. But in terms of his life on earth, it's Yemesh Naseinu Ben Shivim Shana, like the Friedrich Rebbe's talk about 60, 70 years. It's a perfection of time. But yet the Rebbe says, by the Mittler Rebbe, it expresses itself in betachlis hashlemus. Now, another interesting point the Rebbe says that really all of our Rebbeim are really one entity. They're not different people. There's one mo'or, there's one element of because it's essence, and it's not different people, and therefore each one is mamala makam, the one before, and so on and so forth. So each one has their unique maila, but when the unique maila is shining by one Rebbe over the other Rebbe, it's not that he is shining that maila, and that's his personal maila. That's the maila of all 7 of them together, or all 9 Rabbeim together. It's only that this one is bringing out the facet of that maila for all of them. It's not he's bringing it out, it's only his personal thing. It's for every single one of them. This idea of perfection, in that the Gashmi and the Ruchni synchronize in such perfect harmony and they're totally one, is done by the Mittler Rebbe, but he's being mitzvah in it and he's expressing it for all the Rebbe. But we still need to understand why Dafka the Mittler Rebbe. So the Rebbe explains that you see by the Mittler Rebbe Bechlal that his spiritual and physical became so merged together. And he explains this from a few angles. Number one, the Tzemach Tzedek said about the Mittler Rebbe that if you cut him, blood, there won't come blood, but Chassidus literally would come out. Now the Tzemach Tzedek is talking about his physical body, yet he's saying you cut the Mittler Rebbe, Chassidus will flow. Now the Tzemach Tzedek didn't say that about the Alter Rebbe. He said it about the Mittler Rebbe. Okay. Another, the Mittler Rebbe said that his desire is that when 2 Chassidim meet in the marketplace, when 2 Chassidim to meet in a marketplace, their discussion that would be one with the other would be Atik and Arech. That would be their normal discussion. They would he wanted Chassidim to be so soaked up in Chassidus, so marinating in Chassidus, that when they meet each other, the first discussion is Atik and Arech. I have to say that my daughter texts me all the time. What's Chachmastima? What's So I'm saying, that they were touching a mach that nowadays that girls, mothers that are still in this are talking about the Harei. I keep on getting texts from my daughter because she writes for Tanya and for things like that. In any case, but the Mittler Rebbe says, I want that. But the Rebbe points out that where does the Mittler Rebbe want that discussion to happen? On the marketplace, on the street. More than that, he says that he wants that Chassidim should be baki, I think in Atzilus or in the Davidis, like they are in their five fingers of their hand. Again, the Mittler Rebbe is talking about a physical, that he's talking about a familiarity with godliness like your 5 fingers. The Rebbe explains the tifkeit, why the Mittler Rebbe? Because the Mittler Rebbe, he says, takes Chassidus and brings it into Bina, into full-fledged explanation. The Alter Rebbe reveals Chassidus in a way that it's still an akudas hachachma. It's still a little bit above us. It's just a point, but it's not yet fully saturating our human mind. The Mittler Rebbe is rechoive sanor, explanation, a lot of biurim, so that godliness becomes totally understood in the human mind. Because, and the Mittler Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab also does that, but the Mittler Rebbe is like the breakthrough in that Inyan. Since the Mittler Rebbe is the one who brings Chassidus into Bina, which Bina means much more the person, so he represents this idea of the chibur, of the attachment of Elokus with the world. Since Elokus and the world merge together, physical and spiritual become totally unified together, and since the physical and spiritual become unified together, the perfection of the tzaddik that's in the spiritual reveals itself in the physical, because the physical is no different than the spiritual, to the point that he passes away. His estalkus is exactly the same day that he's born, representing perfection. That's the idea. And I'm not going to go to the Sikha. The Rebbe explains how that's by Yaakov Avinu, that Vayishkav, it's fascinating. Okay. Being that that's the case, that the Rebbe is now talking about through the Gilui of Atzmos, which is going to be the Gilui when Mashiach comes, the Gilui of Atzmos, there will be a complete unification between physical and spiritual. The Rebbe says then, so today he starts talking about where the world is standing today. That the world today is already in that state. That's where the Rebbe concludes the Sikha. We're already in that place today that the physical is a total keli. It's totally ready for the Isgalus of Atzmos. It's perfectly refined already. Physicality can be just as holy as the spiritual. In other words, this chiddush of the Mittler Rebbe today, it's already out in the street. And that's where the Rebbe comes. Kol ha'omer le'el, look in Sif Yud Ches, page 104, Sif Yud Ches. Kala Omer La'el. I'm just going to read a few lines over here, a few paragraphs. I'm going to do this fast. All the above mentioned, Shayach v'negela b'nei Yisrael b'chol adayros, is related to the Jewish people in a nogea in all the generations. This is true about all generations. Alachas kama v'kama b'dereinu zeh u'b'zmaneinu zeh. How much more so in our generation and our time? Shalpi Simone Chachamenu Zal, according to the Simonim of Chazal, and Masechta Sanhedrin, and Midrashim, and Mekama Mekayimais, according to all the Simonim, Nemtzvam Kvar B'Shlav HaGeula Mamish. We are literally in the phase, literally, of the redemption. Kemedum Bekama Pamal Lachroina, like we spoke many times in the past. Because we've already done all after there's been such abundance of work. And of all the generations. And in addition to the avodah of the Yidden throughout all the generations, we had the heavy hitters. In the last generations, Hashem sent the special tzaddikim to prepare the world for Mashiach, like the Rebbe explained in Basi Legani. In Basi Legani, the Rebbe explains how the Rabbeim are like those who actually escort Mashiach and the Geula into the world. So the Rebbe says specifically after the avoid of our Rabbeim, beginning with the fathers of Chassidus, which is the Baal Shem Tov, the Magid, the Alter Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, and so forth, and their days of their Geula, which each one was an incredible breakthrough of godliness into this world, which means
is bringing it because the Gashmis and the Ruchnis, because the goal was not by all the Rabbeim.
No. He's not saying all the Rabbeim. The Yemei Gulasim.
He's bringing in
starting with their avodah and their geula days, which what it seems that Rebbe is explaining is which accomplished incredible godly infusion in the world. Yud Kislev, these days, Yud Beis Tammuz, these things purified the world in a very great way, pushing the world to the Geula. Okay, but Yud Kislev, Yemei Haloidasam, V'Hilula Shalahem, and their yard sites and their birthdays, Betes Kislev, B'Chav Dalet Tevis. It's interesting. The Rebbe over here is focusing on the early Rabbeim. He's using their dates. He doesn't mention Yud Beis Tammuz and that. Because he's talking about the Kislev dates, the dates that are around this time. Uma'az, I think so. Uma'az kvar avru kama doiros v'shanim, and from their time, many generations have already passed. Adla v'dasa, and Harry brings the avoid of the Friediger Rebbe. Till we have already the avoid of the Friediger Rebbe, which is the leader of the generation. So therefore, without a question of it, without a shadow of a doubt, kvar saimu was kol habirudim. This is also one of the stunning statements that the Rebbe mentions it. He started mentioning it already in Tafshin Nun Aleph briefly. But here is where it starts taking off. In Parshas Vayetze and Vayishlach, very strong words. And the idea that we finished already all the Birudim. Okay, hold on. We're going to try to talk to that. He says such amazing words. We finished already. In Chassidus, we learned that all our entire work in this world is to raise the sparks. And I'm going to show you soon a very strong lashon that negates this avodah completely. The Rebbe negates it. It's done. He doesn't just say it like, it's a little bit. He says, no, we'll see soon. Koidel Gam.
The not even saying bitter, it's saying bitter.
All refinements, everything.
Mash meant the word bitter to pshutim.
The bitter. Yeah, all refinement. Koidel Gam bitter shall Asav Edom. Even Asav we completed already. In other words, in Chassidus it explains that one of the last bitter is Asav, because Asav is a real dark klippa. So even he's already completed. And the Rebbe brings a kavachaymer. Even the time of Yaakov, Yaakov thought v'chashav she'esav nisbarer. In Yaakov's estimation, in his days, he thought that he had already purified Esav. And the Rebbe Chas v'Shalom doesn't want to say that Yaakov. It's impossible to say Yaakov made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake. From Yaakov's world, Esav was fixed already. But the problem is that Esav, it's like the famous person who said, what was the story? The guy said that Mashiach is here or something like this. He said, he said he called him that. Let's say my day, like the hunt is not getting, the dog is not getting it, or something like that. Or like the story of the chassid who had a dream that the person who had a dream that he would be a rebbe. And the guy told him that, yeah, but the Hasidim have to dream. You understand? So the Rebbe is basically, Yaakov, Mitzad Yaakov, Asav was already done, but Asav was kind of not on Kniskaliel. Al-Achaz Kama Vakam. So if in that time there was already some kind of Yaakov already accomplished a purification of Asav, which did show itself. Because you see, but during that meeting, Asav flipped. The fact that Asav was flipped over for at least for that half an hour that he met Yaakov, and showed brotherly love, was because there has been already a real deep transformation of Asav, even though there were many parts to him that were not yet fixed. How much more so after so much time has passed? Asav is already completely fixed. One of the things that Rebbe keeps on doing in all these sikhs is that Rebbe is showing how we see it in the world. The Rebbe says, take a look at the Christian world. Take a look at America, the Rebbe says. It's the first time in history that we have the descendants of Asav that are so supportive, so crazy supportive of the Jewish people. Take a look at what's her name, the governor of South Carolina. I'll share with you a video later, who spoke today about the Chabad rabbi. What's her name? What? No. The governor of South Carolina. Noam, what's her name? Not Noam. She has Noam, South Carolina. South Dakota. I mean, Noam. What's her name?
Okay.
Whatever. Anyways, she gives this. I'll share it with you. She gives this incredible thing how she's going to light a menorah, and she's going to make sure that every state employee, she's going to have the rabbi, and she's going to make sure that every state employee has to show up, because the rabbi has so much to teach the world and everybody over here about what the Jewish people, and he's a real servant of the Lord, and you need to all hear what he has to say. This is, and she's giving the speech. It's amazing. It's not what the Rebbe is saying, how the world is so ready. And the Rebbe is also pointing that even Russia, even that was so anti-Judy, is already, so you see, Asav is fixed. Those who see themselves as the heirs of Asav, right, which is basically the Christian world, in a manner of Malchus Shel Chesed, which the Rebbe always refers to the United States as a kingdom of kindness. We're seeing this, the tolerance to Jewish observance and so on and so forth, and support of Judaism in so many other countries. And particularly recently, because the Rebbe is talking in 1991, 1992, right after the massive transformation in Russia. How they move, and it's understood. Hear these words. We're already in a situation where the physical world, and even the physical, not just the physical body of the Jew, but even the gashmius of the world, even the physicality of the world, have already been refined and completely been rectified. They are completely vessels to all lights and all spiritual matters. And those Gashmius is no more an impediment on block. Gashmius has always been, the physical world has always been a dense and blockage, a coarse block on godliness. But it's no more. We finished the work, the Rebbe says. Including and primarily the greatest godly light, which is Oirei Shel Mashiach Tzidkenu. The Gashmius of the world is not blocking anymore the light of Mashiach. Now, Oirei Shel Mashiach is connected to what we said earlier. Last week we learned, the Rebbe says that the Ruach of Mashiach was already in his Gala. Now starts the Avodah of being Megala, Oirei Shel Mashiach, the light of Mashiach. But the Gashmis of the world won't block it anymore, the Rebbe is saying. Gashmis won't block it anymore. Because the world's already Mezuchach. It's already refined. The world is ready, the Gashmis is ready to reveal the very essence of God himself. No, this is related to Parshas Toldos. We would have had to learn that Sicha Baricha, where the Rebbe explains that Moshiach is really what? He is the etzem haneshama of all the Jewish people. He's not some other entity of us. He's our etzem. In other words, he represents not even Yechida. That's one of the chidushim in Parshas Toldos.
What does mean etzem haneshama?
Let me think. The Rebbe explains that generally we always know, this was a very famous concept that we always learn in Chassidus, that there are 5 names for the neshama: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. And Mashiach represents the general Yechida, just like Moshe Rabbeinu represents the general Neshama, and Adam Arishon represents the general Chai, and David HaMelech is the general Nefesh, and Eliyahu Hanavi is the general Ruach. The whole Kuntras in Yanish Teres Chassidus is based on this idea, where he discusses it. Mashiach is Yechida. But the Rebbe says a chiddush in Parshas Vayera and then continues in Parshas Toldos. The chiddush is that Moshiach, the Rebbe says, we have to be mesaken, the Rebbe says. Moshiach is not Yechida. Yechida, because Yechida, the Rebbe says, is still some kind of an expression of soul. It's Chamisha Shemois Nikra Loh. Neshama is called with 5 names, that there is someone who has 5 names. So there is an identity before the 5 names. It's just the very core kuda atzmis of the neshama. And what is that? That's the essence of the soul that is just perfectly one with the essence of God. The Eibishter, the essence, atzmus mahuz, and the neshama are perfectly one. And it doesn't even have an expression. That's the essence of the Yid. And the Rebbe explains that Moshiach facilitates that idea. He expresses that idea. And basically, the Rebbe, to bring this out, the Rebbe explains in the previous sikhs that it's like crazy. All the Rebbe's Nasias, all the years, the Rebbe, like one of the Rebbe's favorite things in Yiddishkeit is Moidani. The Rebbe is always like the simplest things are like the most exciting for the Rebbe. It's amazing. Like for the Rebbe, the most exciting thing is Shahakol Niyah B'Dvarim. A little kid saying Shahakol Niyah B'Dvarim and Moidani. And the Rebbe always explained that Moidani is the Yechida. But in this Sikha, the Rebbe says that there's even before the Moidani. Because Moidani is already some kind of an expression of the Jew. But even just the Moidani, you're already feeling something, you're expressing something. But then there is the person who's expressing. The Rebbe says that's the second you wake up. You're a Mishnasar. The fact that you woke up, that's the Hizgalus of you. You and your Nefesh Elokis, as it is one with the Eibishter, before you did anything. And that's Mashiach. The birth of Mashiach. It's even deeper, just the essence of the Jew. Yeah, and you're one with the Eibishter. You and the Eibishter are one. So the Rebbe says, so the world is now a keli. The physical world is a keli for the Hizgalus of the essence of the Eibishter, which reveals itself through the essence of Mashiach, which reveals itself, Shalamaylam Abchinas Yechida, as he says over here. It's higher than Yechida. It's higher than all names and all levels. And through this it's revealed in every Jew. Okay. So being that now, till now the Rebbe explained, what do we have now? He summarized. After all the work, the world is ready. Okay? That's what he said. Basically, let's review. He said just now, because we've had the avoid of all the avoid of Bnei Yisrael, including the Rabbeim and all the Inyanim, and even in the days of Yaakov. So we finished for even the lowest, darkest, even the most anti-Semitic elements in the world, even the most ferocious entities of the world, they too have already been refined and transformed. Okay? And therefore they're ready for the revelation of Mashiach and the revelation of the Eibishter Mashiach. All godliness the world is ready to receive. So, but what is still necessary? But the Rebbe is not going to say something is still needed. The only thing that's lacking, a Jew needs to now open his eyes, and he will see how the entire world is ready for the Geula. So over here he's using the term, everything is ready for the Geula. Not that there is Geula, but that we're open your eyes. A Jew has to open his eyes and see, look around, see how the whole world is ready. What does it mean it's ready? Yesh kvaras hashulchan aruch. We have already the set table. Yesh kvaras leviyasin v'sher rabor v'yayin amashuma. We have already the leviyasin, which is the fish. It's going to be at the meal. And the show. Wait. We have to see what all these things mean. I'm just presenting what it says first. Ubnei Yisrael kvar yoshim saviv hashulchan. Yidden are already sitting by the table. Shulchan Aviyam, Melech Malchem Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're sitting already by the table of the Eibishter, the table of our Father, the King of all kings. Yachadin Mashiach Tzedkenu. We are sitting already with Mashiach Tzedkenu. K'di Isa b'Svarim, like it says in Svarim, here the Rebbe reverts back to what he explained in the last Sikha. Shebechol Dor Yeshnei Echad Mezerah Yehuda Shu Roi Lis Mashiach. He says in every generation there's someone who's worthy to be Mashiach, which in our generation, and who's that in our generation? The Rebbe doesn't skimp over here. Again, my father-in-law, which again, that's always referring to himself. Okay. So what's it? So we're already at the table, we're sitting with the Eibishter, we're sitting already with Mashiach Tzedkenu. Okay. Now, and after 40 years, from the Istalkus of the Friediger Rebbe. So we know that you sometimes can be in a situation where you have something incredible, but you just don't have the capability to see it. You don't have the eyes to see it. The Jews who were with Moshe Rabbeinu for 40 years, they didn't appreciate it. So after 40 years, Moshe Rabbeinu says, now you have already the eyes, the heart to see and the eyes to see. So the Rebbe said, over here, since it's 40 years already, you have already, Yesh kvar gam leiv ladas, v'nayim lidas, you have the heart to know, the eyes to see, and the ears to hear. So that we have already. Until now, we might have not have had that. Now we have the capabilities even to see it. So what do we need? If we have already the eyes, like we said, we have to open the heart that we have already, and just the yiftachu es anayim lidos. We have to open our eyes that we have already. The yiftachu es anayim lishmaya. We should open the ears that we have already, that are here to listen, that we have them already. And again, since the Rebbe is focusing so much on the physical, so we should use all of our physical limbs. In addition to limud Torah, which of course we should be using our limbs, that should be our obsession. Limud Torah and kiyum mitzvahs, okay. And so what should we use all of our limbs? We should use all of our physical limbs to learn Chassidus, and that was revealed through our Rabbeim, and to fulfill their hayros, their directives. Including also to learn about Mashiach, as the Rebbe introduced. And what will that accomplish? When we will now use all of our limbs, our eyes, and we will learn learn Chassidus in general, and we will learn in Yanei Geula, this will help. This will open our eyes, and our eyes and our ears. Sheyavinu, we should understand. Yiru, we should see. The Yishmu, we should hear. In the literal sense, in the physical realm of the world, we should see, feel, and hear the Geula. All of that exists already. We just have to open our eyes, and then we will see. Now, if the Rebbe said this once, it's one thing. I'm going to show you. We're not going to do it today because we got a little into thing, but I want to show you in the next couple of weeks different nuances. In the next Parshas Vayishlach, the Rebbe says even stronger, a very strong lashon. The Rebbe says that that not only the Indian needs. Earlier said everything is finished, but it needs to be nizgala. The Rebbe says over here in the next week, he says it's already nizgala. It's only that the only thing necessary is that we need to open our eyes to see it. The gilui is here already. The only thing is necessary is to open our eyes. So all of this needs obviously some serious explanation. What is it I was saying over here? And what does it mean that we're sitting at the table, Mashiach is here already, we open our eyes so we can see him? I feel that there's a lot to talk about on it. Be'ez Hashem, we will. Now next week, I'm going to, Tuesday night in the middle of Sheva Brachas. If next week we want to do the shir earlier instead of 8:30, 8:30 is going to be late. But if I do it earlier, I'm okay doing it earlier, like maybe sometime after Ma'ariv, just next week. We don't want to cancel the shir because every night is going to be.
I'll be here.
Okay.
We also, I'd like to touch on what we learned last week. How does Mashiach know that if the Rebbe is saying now, Tzaddik Rebbe, the whole thing of last week that he notifies him.
No, when he says Friedrich Rebbe, he's talking about Nasi. I told you that many times. He's talking about as the Friedrich Rebbe and him are one. He's not talking about Friedrich Rebbe. You see that he's not the Friedrich Rebbe. He's talking about him and the Friedrich Rebbe as one. The whole Basil Lagani. Yeah. And Basil Lagani, the Rebbe was notified. Yeah, but it seems like there's different levels of notification. In other words, one is that he knows his neshama's descent into this world, what the general mission is. Another thing when he's kind of given a green light already and told that this is the time of it is. Be'ez Hashem, we will continue. Well, yeah. Next week, okay. So Be'ez Hashem. Yeah, I'll take it.